thanks for coming by. It looks like you've got some high school annuals here with a lot of photographs in them.
Right.
How about tell me where that is and when that is, if you have an idea?
That's the front of the Gibsonville High School when I went to high school there. And this is the front going into the main auditorium area.
Do you have any idea what year this was?
That year of 1961.
All right, in 61, this looks like a lot of high school age girls here. Where were the little kids? I mean, was this K through 12 or what?
The front steps was senior territory.
Okay, tell me about that.
So as you got older, you kind of grabbed that territory when you become a senior.
Yes.
So use the underclassmen.
So I don't see any little people in this picture, do I?
They're all senior class probably.
All right.
The others were in the other buildings. The elementary, there was all 12 grades.
In this site?
1960, yeah.
All right.
All the way up to about 75, 76, it became a consolidated.
Split out. Okay, so in those years, if you were a, say, 4th or 5th grader, how did you get into the school building if you couldn't go through the front door?
Well, there were other buildings on this side.
Right.
That were the elementary, and then from first grade up to about the 5th grade.
Was that the remainder of what was called the Green School earlier today? Was that still there? The previous school?
The Green School was where the cafeteria is now.
All right.
And they built a new elementary behind it, and then a partial elementary attached to the cafeteria.
All right.
And then the rest were all in that main building. And in those years, we used every room in the whole building, upstairs, basement, the whole thing.
The whole building.
Right.
So how did you find out as a not senior not to use those steps? How did you get informed of that rule?
Well, I don't think it was enforced very well, but it was sort of a given thing.
I see. Larger high school boys telling you not
Nobody
to.
would bully up on you.
I see. Nobody would get you for that. We heard something about sports here earlier today. Different teams, football, baseball, basketball. And I was just curious in terms of, let's see, where are we here looking at this? This is the baseball team. What can you tell me about any of these other athletic pictures?
Well, these were the basketball teams.
This looks like they're playing in a real gymnasium now. Yeah. That this does not look like the auditorium of the school.
That is the gymnasium that's currently out behind the school now. So that was built in the 50s.
Okay. And what about these two gentlemen here, number 32
that's
and
21? Me
21?
on the right.
I see.
That was our end on the left.
Did your uniform shrink, or what happened to you here?
I weighed about 115 pounds.
I see.
Real terror.
Well, how many people were on the football team? About?
There was not enough to scrimmage. So there was less than
22 and 22 or whatever, right?
There's a football team.
Okay.
It might have been 30.
Now, where did you play the football games? Where was the field?
There was a field directly behind the gymnasium.
Okay, and was it lit or anything?
The field is still there,
right.
And it was lit, and there were concrete bleachers that were built by the Boosters Club. In fact, the community was very united back in those days. That football and basketball and baseball were the key sports, or the only sports basically. And before Western High School was built,
right.
Everybody that lived in the city limits of Gibsonville and the surrounding area walked to school. You didn't ride the bus unless you lived out of town.
Okay.
So, but in 1963, Western Alamance was built, and they took everybody in Alamance County that lived in Gibsonville and made them go to Western.
So then you were splitting the town at that point.
Yeah.
So prior to 1963, if you were a 17-year-old, you would have been going to this school.
Right. Now you could pay at that time and still remain to go into Guilford County School.
All right.
But you had to pay an extra fee.
Now there was a story about the lights on the football field that.
Yeah, the boosters paid for and raised the money and sold like hot dogs and drinks and things like that. And they raised the money and put the concrete bleachers in, and they lit the field.
So football was a big deal.
Football was a big deal, and the community was really active with the school, and they had what's called a boosters club. And the parents were out at all the games. It was big attendance. But when it broke up Western High School, that's sort of where it went downhill.
Okay. This last group, I'm just curious about an activity picture here. This group of students on this side of the page, what are they doing?
Well, this is like a change of class, and everybody's going to another classroom.
Right.
And you might recognize this person here. This is Ted Bowen. He was my math professor in Gibsonville High School. And those are just, rest of them are students. And this is right outside of the auditorium in the main hallway.
And activities in those years, anything?
Yeah, there's a gymnasium there.
Right.
Some things that we had that they don't do anymore, we had what's called May Day. And everybody would dress up and each class would have a certain color they would represent.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had the maypole and they would wrap the maypole and dance. It was sort of a festive to kick off the spring season.
So this would have been not in May necessarily?
Yeah, it was in May.
May,
It would be
okay.
the first week in May, probably.
And the entire school was involved in
Yeah.
it? So even the first graders were in
Yeah.
some way
Yeah.
being wrapped in colors or?
Yeah,
were
they would-
participating?
Dress up or things like that.
Okay, now how about?
And then they had a May Queen, which I don't know if it's in this particular part. She would be honored, and usually one, I don't see it in here, but, there would be a May Queen selected, just like a homecoming queen. but
Only in
she'd
the
be a May queen.
springtime.
Right.
Let's see, I think we just talked about football, that was a
Mhm.
slightly bigger
Yeah, that's
picture.
1960 there.
And again, 1963 was the last year of the consolidated, and they split up after that.
Mhm.
Okay. What about we're looking at some other sports, it looks like basketball. And
Right.
again, earlier today, we saw pictures of basketball teams, and if I recall, the first picture on the basketball team had 5 people on it. It looks like at this point, it's grown to about 12 or more.
Yeah,
And same with the women.
right. And back then, the women couldn't cross half court. You either played defense or offense. There was 3 players
Right,
that would be on each side. You'd have 3 defensive players, you'd have 3 offensive.
offensive players.
So when you passed the ball across, you couldn't cross it.
I wasn't sure on the women's basketball team side, who's this person right here?
That's Kay Yow.
I see.
Now, when she was going, I don't know what year this is, 60, they would allow what they call a Roman guard.
Yes,
So you could cross, like 2 could cross or 1 could cross. I believe it was 2. So it made 5 on each side.
on each side of the half
But
line.
2 or 1 of the defensive would have to stay back.
Okay. Well, let's see, I appreciate you coming down.
Sure.
You've got your annuals and,
Right. And that was a big thing. Everybody would sign your annuals, and each senior would write little notes in the back. You'll see wherever they advertise it, where you can see where people wrote me a note.
you owe me money, you should pay me soon. I see what they wrote on yours.
That's right.
It's kind of interesting, in the back, they also had television programming guide, 1960, just for fun, the TV shows in the afternoon were Brighter Day and Secret Storm, Edge of Night. I think they're still on.
They're still on.
Probably still on. I appreciate it, Bill.
Yes, sir.